Breath. That says something about my overall health, that I walked up here from the locker room and am out of breath. Yeah, that's right. Good to be with you guys. I'll just answer any questions that you might have here. I do want to begin just to say, this is, I think, been a hard week for everybody, and certainly as a program, our thoughts are with all those that have been impacted by what's happened in Las Vegas. So, as much as anything as a coach, I think we're always trying to make sure that our players and we as a program understand that there's a lot of stuff that's bigger than us and bigger than what we're doing. And, this is just an example for us, I think, to make sure our players are reminded that there's some tough stuff going on. And obviously we're a ways away from it, but our hearts are with all those that have been impacted by that. So, I also move on here quickly, just a couple house cleaning items here. Well, before I do that, I want to congratulate Mike Conley on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. What an incredible honor, and so well deserved for him. He's, I've exchanged a lot of text with Mike here in the last couple weeks, and I think my first weekend on the job, and he's been incredible, and what an example for all of us on what it means to be a pro's pro. Everybody that's coached him or been around him has been impressed with who he is as a human being, and obviously who he is as a player and a teammate. So congratulations to Mike. And also Kyle Young has there's Mike's former teammate there, Greg Oden. Another pretty good one. Kyle Young has had his tonsils removed yesterday, so he will be out for a significant amount of time. What that is, we're not certain right now, but it'll be a few weeks, we think, for sure. So had his tonsils removed. Doctors felt like he had been having some just infection issues this fall, so they felt like this was needed, very much needed, or else he was going to continue to have issues. And so he did that yesterday, and surgery went really well, and he's on the mend. Anything else I missed there, Dan? Okay.
Well, and when you say a couple of weeks, does that put the start of the season in jeopardy for him?
I would say, will he be healthy for like our first, at full strength for our first scrimmage? That's probably doubtful. Will he play? Sure. He's not going to be, I don't think he's going to be at full strength. But I would think by the time we play our first game, he should be back into a reasonable flow.
And when we talked to you the other day before camp started, you said you were looking forward to getting to know your team because you've had to do so many things aside from just coach this group. I know you're only a few practices in, but what have you learned so far, and what has that experience been like of just being on the court with your guys finally?
It's been great. I think it's been it's been a terrific time here in just we're on practice number 4, but it's been a terrific first 3 practices in terms of just getting the chance to spend time with our guys in this setting for an extended period of time. They've been really receptive. And listen, let's be honest, right? Most teams are good and have the right approach in the first, week or a couple weeks for that matter. The challenge for us will be how consistent can our approach continue to be, and what is our work ethic when we get into some of these dog days that you get into once you're in it for a while. But I like our team's versatility at a couple different positions. We understand the depth issues that we have on the perimeter, and we're in the process of trying to figure out how we're going to manage that.
Coach Fred Yates with Global Radio Network on the Move of Sports Chaos. How has the adjustment been for, obviously, with the new guys coming into the program? Now you got some veteran guys that have been in the program for a couple of years. How has that transition been, trying to get everybody on the same page now, as far especially with adapting to what you and the new coaching staff are trying to implement in the program now?
Well, I think it's a daily process. It's evolving. I don't think that buy-in happens overnight. I think that is that's a process built on trust and a relationship over time. I think our guys have a great approach right now, but our complete buy-in to what we're doing will be tested once we get popped a little bit or hit some adversity. I've maintained I really like our leadership within our older guys. Now that'll be tested, and we'll see if what I like is what I'm seeing is when we get tested how that looks. But I really like with Jay Sean and Kada and Cam and some of those other guys that have been in the program for a while. I like what I'm seeing.
Chris, there seems to be a wave of social activism taking place in the NBA. Things like that tend to filter down. I'm wondering what you would tell your guys if they wanted to get involved in that sort of thing.
Sure. I think it'll be something that that we'll have a discussion with as we get closer to game day. And, I think that'll be something we'll have to think through and talk through as a team. But I believe in the right for our players to express themselves based on their own convictions. I really believe in that. So I've not had a player in the past that has wanted to do that. But if someone did, then I just would want to discuss that with them, and I would certainly support them.
I know you talked about singing Carmen, Ohio to the student section after
Yes.
games. You're not, I guess, planning to do a Midnight Madness type event this year, but I'm wondering what other types of things you might have in mind when it comes to forging that relationship between your team and the student body and the fan base as a whole. Do you have some things in mind that you're mulling over that would go toward that?
I think Carmen, Ohio is just kind of an expression of how we feel about being here, being at this part of this university, and certainly engaging with the students. I think our guys have done some things in the last couple of weeks that have went out on campus. I think that the blacktop, is that still in play? Okay. So we're still having some discussions there, but I think you'll see our involvement. It's a little bit different because we've been on the run here a little bit, but I think that's going to be very important. Our engagement with the student body and with the fans, it's really important. We want to make this place a difficult place to play. Ultimately, I think our fans will respond to how we play on the court, and not necessarily, certainly wins and losses has an impact, but how we play, I think, will determine the energy around our program in a lot of ways.
Chris, you were just talking about like a consistent approach after week one, keeping that work ethic. In prior teams that you've coached, what have those teams had that you've been able to do that? And two, what have those teams been able to accomplish when you have that consistent work ethic in the preseason?
Well, I think you're trying to get your team to reach its full potential, whatever that looks like, and that can be in some people's minds a subjective thing, right? I mean, I'm in the airport yesterday and I grab one of these magazines and I see another magazine that's picked us near the bottom or at the bottom. So that can be a subjective thing. I think we're in the process of defining what that's going to be like here each and every day. I just think our teams that I've coached that have been successful have been really, what we talked about last week, have really had young men that have been able to withstand the adversity with the right response throughout the season, and have been able to just keep coming, and have had a kind of a single purpose, a single-mindedness to them. And I think, however you want to define that, resilience, grit, there is that is going to determine a lot of what our season is going to look like. And listen, I'm a big believer that you practice those things. So those aren't things that you turn on game night and you've never experienced out on the practice floor. That has to be practiced over and over, and then we have to evaluate what's their response when we put them in difficult situations out here. And if it's not the kind of response that we want, then it's our job it's my job to correct that and hope that we can move towards a better response. That's really, I think, how you build some of the stuff that we're looking to build. And, that some of that will be defined by determined, by how we progress throughout the season. Are we better in February than we were in January? That remains to be seen.
Coach, I'm curious about the series with UC, and when did the Cold War end, and what was the genesis of this, and how many people had to sign off to say, yeah, we'll play them?
We're like 6 questions in, and that's my first question on this. Shocking. I give Gene Smith, our athletic director, a lot of credit because I think he was certainly behind, in a lot of ways, this idea of playing this and supporting a series like this. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. Excuse me? Well, yeah. I mean, I had to sign off on it. He wasn't going to tell me you have to play it, or maybe he was. But certainly we both had to be in agreement on that. And I get in some ways, I mean, I understand some ways why it hasn't happened in the past. So I can understand that. I understand that. I'm not an idiot. But I just think listen, though Cincinnati is a top 25 program right now. If you win that game, that's a good RPI game. And that helps you. And not only that, but there's no question the thirst from our fans has been
doesn't it
apparent.
build excitement when you need excitement?
Yes, I think it does. And I don't know that I really understood that until I had spent maybe a few weeks, a couple months here. I don't know that I'm from a distance, I didn't understand the thirst for that from our fans. And even the relationship with Cincinnati, probably more so than any other program in the state. So I think that was an education for me a little bit. But once I understood that, and I've played Cincinnati in the past, and I think the fact that they are a high level program, a quality program, makes even more sense beyond the fact that, like, if your fans are hollering at you to play a certain team and it's of no benefit, I'm going to have to say, sorry fans, but this isn't the most prudent move right now. But this met all, I think, the requirements to be a really high-level game, and excitement was certainly a big part of it.
Coach,
You said you understand why it hasn't happened in the past. A lot of people don't understand.
Is that right? I just think you've heard that over the years, right? Any type, I heard that when I was in Indiana. Why would Indiana do the Crossroads Classic why would Indiana-Purdue do Crossroads Classic with Butler? But it's changed in the last really 10, 15, 20 years maybe, whereas, we have certainly some accomplished programs. There was a year in particular when we were at Butler where Indiana beat us in that game, and Indiana was on the bubble for most of the tournament, NCAA tournament bubble for most of the season, and we were their signature win. I was in my first year coaching, and so that's right. That's when you're thinking back on things, I think the argument that, hey, you don't have to play them because you're the state university, it doesn't resonate with me as much because, again, the quality of the program and the energy around the game and the fact that it could be a really good RPI game.
Oh, and that Big Ten has a series with Big East, which would bring Xavier into play, perhaps part of the Gavitt games. Maybe not in the same year you play Cincinnati, but do you foresee maybe that happening at some point? I think people will be very excited about that as well.
A game with Xavier? Yeah, it's something I'm open to. Obviously, I have a history with them, and it's certainly another really good program. So it would fit kind of the criteria that we're looking at. There's no plans in place. The one thing I would just remind everyone is scheduling takes. This was unique in a way to try to get this squeezed in at this point this quickly. We're playing at UC next year. Like that doesn't always happen. So there's not going to be a massive overhaul that you're going to see in the schedule anyway. Like I don't look at the schedule that Thad had and say this needs a massive overhaul. I think there are some changes that I want to make that philosophically I believe in. But there are still going to be games at home against programs that might be of smaller schools, and there are still going to be series that we have that dictate what we can do more or limit what we can do moving forward. And there's also conversations, as many of you know, of potentially more Big Ten games. So all that makes it difficult to make too many overhauls.
Coach, in terms of your practice, I assume you and Coach Mata have differences in your practice philosophy. I'm wondering how long it takes for players to kind of pick up on maybe a different style in practice, and when do you anticipate that they'll pick it up fully and really be able to go 100%? Because I imagine there's a learning curve there.
There's a lot of thinking. You see a lot right now. We're slower in our reaction time right now because guys are doing a lot of thinking. I think that'll be the case for the first month and a half. I think in games, we probably won't be as good in November, hopefully, than we are later in the year because there's a thinking that is going on, and we know that slows down reaction time. I'm hoping that, guys will play off reflexes and muscle memory, and as we continue to build habits, that'll happen in the next few weeks. But it certainly hasn't happened yet. There is that normal transition that's probably slowed them down a little bit.
The possible changes to the Big Ten schedule going forward. And I wonder how much, as you start to look ahead to preseason tournaments or things, how much does the potential of going to 20 games impact what you can do?
It does, because we're tied into some series right now. Our schedule is tied into some future series. Mentioned the Gavitt games, the Big Ten ACC Challenge, obviously the CBS event. So I would like to play in some of these events that happen, some of these tournaments, whether it's Maui or, Battle for Atlantis, whatever. I would like to do that. But I'm also, you can't play, 30 high major games. That's not fair to your team. So there is, we're looking at that. It's a puzzle we're trying to put together here based on what I would like to do and what is reality. But I think having the biggest thing is can we have a couple games in the non-conference that people really find attractive in those kind of November, December months, and can at least one of them be at home, maybe two of them be at home. I think if you can do that, your fans, it'll excite your fan base, and they'll understand that, hey, soon enough, Big Ten play's coming. But if we can have one or two really attractive games, they're all attractive to coaches. Like, we don't look at it, any other game and say, wow, we're going to wear our best suit for that game because they're all really important and really big to us. But it's different for your fans.
Because you'd mentioned Xavier earlier, and it's been reported you guys will play them in a scrimmage here in the preseason. I just wonder how that came about and what you hope to get out of scheduling them.
A regular season game or a scrimmage? I would just say don't believe everything you read on Twitter. That'd be my blanket statement for this whole year. But yeah, we do have something with them. You know, I just think it was scheduled actually prior. Thad had talked to, but Chris and I are friends. So they're a top 15, top 20 program right now. So there's going to be a lot of benefits from that. It makes a ton of sense for us because you get a dose of honesty and reality in those settings, and why not do it against a high-caliber team?
And how's Andre Wesson? 3 practices and 4 practices in.
Progressing well, needs to get in shape. I'll go with this last one. He's progressing well, needs to get in shape. Has a really good mind for the game, but he's got a ways to go in conditioning, and it's not his fault. He's got a long ways to go. Yes, sir.
Mentioned Coach Q implementing some player-specific workouts and workouts to strengthen some weaknesses. I was wondering what are the benefits of those workouts, and what have you seen from the guys in those workouts?
We've tried to get a little bit leaner, and we've tried to do a lot of, and I'm not well versed in all that they did in the past, but we've tried to do a lot of functional movements, functional basketball movements in Q's workout, and he's tried to tailor that to each guy's specific needs for improvement. So it's been a lot of functional, not a ton of heavy lifting, a lot of functional basketball stuff. I think it's been well received by them, and Q's done an outstanding job. We've got a ways to go. Physically, we're not an imposing team right now, and we need to get there.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.